actually here," Georgina said. "I really thought you were funning us when you first suggested it after Christmas, Nathaniel. Will we receive many invitations, do you suppose? At home you have enormous consequence, but here you are but a baronet after all."
"I am a gentleman of wealth and property, Georgie," he told her. "It will suffice. We will be invited everywhere. By the end of the season, I will have found suitable husbands for both of you, never fear. Or Margaret will have done so." Margaret, their eldest sister, 2 years his senior, was the wife of Baron Ketterley. She too was coming to London with her husband, with the express purpose of sponsoring and chaperoning her second youngest sister and her cousin, the only 2 remaining unmarried females in the family. There had been 6 of them, counting Lavinia. 2 of them had been married before Nathaniel returned home 2 years before, summoned by his ailing father. He had been away from home for years before that. First as a cavalry officer with Wellington's armies during the Peninsular Wars and Waterloo, and then for another year after he sold out, indulging in every imaginable extravagance and debauchery with his friends. But he had gone home, albeit reluctantly, had buried his father a mere 3 months later, and had proceeded to take up the life of a country gentleman and to run his estate, which had been somewhat neglected during the last years of his father's life. He had married 2 of his sisters to respectable suitors, and had been left with just these 2. At Margaret's suggestion, made over the Christmas holiday, he had considered bringing them to London, to the great marriage mart. It was going to feel very good indeed to have the last of them married and respectably settled, to have his home and his life to himself at last. One of his main reasons for purchasing his commission had been his desire to escape from a home that was beset by females. Not that he was not fond of his sisters, but there were limits to a man's endurance. He had certainly never imagined that he would spend several years of the prime of his life organising matches for his sisters and Lavinia.
"I am sure, Nathaniel," Georgina said now, "there will be scores of ladies lovelier than I, and younger. I cannot imagine that I will attract many suitors."
"Do you wish to attract many, then, Georgie?" he asked with a smile and a wink. "Would one wealthy, handsome one not be enough? And one who loved you and whom you loved?" The anxiety went from her face, and she laughed.
"Yes, such a one would suffice very nicely indeed," she said.
Georgina, he rather suspected, had had her heart broken at one time. Their youngest sister had married almost a year before, but her husband, a personable young gentleman of some fortune, who had leased a property not far from Bowood a few months before Nathaniel's return there, had apparently directed his attentions to Georgina before turning them on Eleanor. Georgie, a young lady of tender heart and strong loyalties, had often stayed at home, instead of attending assemblies and other entertainments with her sisters. She had stayed in order to give her company to their ailing father, who had always seemed to grow worse when his girls were planning some outing, and so her suitor had chosen to pay court to the more easily accessible Eleanor. 20 was an advanced age for a young lady to be making her come out, but not too advanced, certainly not for a young lady of Georgina's delicate prettiness and sweet disposition, and she would have a more than adequate dowry. Nathaniel had no real fears for her. Now Lavinia—
"You need not look at me like that, Nat," she said, as soon as his eyes turned in her direction, and long before they could have assumed any expression that might be referred to as that. "I agreed to come. I even agreed quite readily, as I wished to see London and to visit all the galleries and museums. I will even concede that there will be some pleasure in being outfitted by a modiste, who will probably know what she is doing. Margaret has always spoken highly of her anyway, and of course it will be interesting to attend balls and to witness all the follies of human nature as exhibited by its wealthiest and most privileged members. But nothing will prevail upon me, I warn you, nothing, to take my place in the marriage mart. Thank you kindly, but I am..."